I am here with Ted Cohen, managing partner at Tag Strategic.
That's correct.
Thank you very much for sitting down with us today. You're an extremely popular guy. People want to talk to you.
Sort of. I've been at this. I was at Warner Records in the mid-'70s to the mid-'80s, and through a quirk of fate, they put me in Boston, and Boston was sort of the Silicon Valley of the East. And I met folks at various companies who convinced me I needed to go to this thing called the Consumer Electronics Show, which at the time started out in Chicago. They hadn't moved it to Las Vegas yet. So I started going in 1975, and about 3 years after it started, and ended up meeting Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, and met the folks at Atari. Wow. And started looking at what technology might do to music. And in '82, between '75 and '82, I was the guy that you called up saying, there's this new thing called a VCR. Do I get VHS or do I get this beta thing? Which one? Right. I want to get a camcorder. Do I get the Panasonic or do I get the JVC? And so I was the resident expert on, this is the turntable you want, this is the VCR you want. In '82, I got invited into a group that we started between Warner Records and Atari, which at the time was then owned by Warner Communications, to talk about the effect of the personal computer, which had now been out for 2 or 3 years. I think in '79 I got my first Atari computer. And the CD that was coming out a year later in '83, how when the CD in a digital format was going to be accessed by a computer ultimately, because CD-ROM drives were anticipated. The CD-ROM standard was already there. How was this all going to play out? So we started looking at how the interface design and consumer interaction and how fans might want to manipulate music. And the guy leading this group was a guy named Alan Kay, who had come from Xerox PARC. He invented the mouse and the idea of a graphic interface that he showed to Steve, and they went off and built the Mac, and first the Lisa and then the Mac. He left Xerox and joined Atari and said, there's going to be, the computer's not just going to be about information, it's going to be about media. So since '82, pretty much the focus of my life has been on how technology supports the music experience, not necessarily how music supports technology.
And for the last decade, you've been evangelizing access as opposed to just getting fixated on the physical product.
Right. I let go of the physicality about 8 or 9 years ago, and started looking at, when I saw Rhapsody for the first time, which was created here in San Francisco, when Sean Ryan came in, at the time was Listen.com, created the Rhapsody product. While Napster was a big deal in '99, in May of '99, I started working with Napster, the illegal Napster, and tried to help them go legal. At the time, for whatever reasons, despite what you read in the history of it, Napster really didn't want to play nice. Napster thought if 50, 60 million people were using Napster, copyright laws would change. They were never going to have to pay the labels a dime or the publishers or anybody. Ultimately, they wanted to. At the time they wanted to, it was, everybody was so mad at each other that it didn't work out. But anyway, Napster showed the first glimmer of what access would do in a unlicensed model. Rhapsody showed that for 10 bucks a month or 15 bucks a month, do I want to buy a CD for $15 a month, or do I want to have access to 3 to 5 to 7 to 10 million songs now? At the time it was 3 million, now it's 10 to 12 million.
Right, so, and do you want to have the volume of millions of songs, but also just the songs that you want off a particular album,
right.
So not having to throw down $15 for
exactly. And even though I would argue, and I have very passionately, that I don't think artists go in the studio to only write, to record 3 good songs.
Oh, I agree.
Some albums only have 3 good songs. Other albums I think are brilliant, and some of my favorite music during my life, just enjoying music, have been that hidden track, track 11 or 12, that isn't the obvious hit single, but the lyrics just knock you out, or there's a melody there that, yes, you have to hear it 5 or 6 times, and then you go, no, this is the gem. And we've lost that in an iTunes world, where people are looking for the 1.99 track. So I've been a big proponent of the subscription model, the access model, where there's not a 99-cent barrier to discovery, that I can hear the new Arcade Fire album and I can listen to every track on it. I don't have to pick just Wasted Time or whatever. Is it Wasted Time? I think it's Wasted something. That's the track that's being featured right now.
Right.
I can experience all of it. I can create playlists. I can now have it on my iPhone. I can have it on my Android. I can have it on
everywhere.
Everywhere.
It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter if it's on your hard drive or if it's in the cloud or wherever. Like it exists as long as. Now, if a website gets shut down or bought, and then they restrict access, so you think you have like an iMeme playlist or something like that, and then they take it away from you.
That was a problem. I was on the board at iMeme, and so it was a very painful transition when iMeme when we declared it over and sold the assets to MySpace. People who had created playlists and preferences and everything. I don't know if it was handled correctly with MySpace or if that was just an undoable thing, but there were a lot of people that were upset that they lost basically a lot of time. I would say that having had my hard drive crash a few times, even though I back it up with Time Machine and do all that stuff, when it says your library is corrupted, would you like us to rebuild it? And you go yes, and it's renamed iTunes Library Damaged. And it doesn't say to me, I mean, what I would love, and somebody out there should build the tool that takes a snapshot of my library, that lists every track in my library. So at some point, if there is a crash, I can compare what's in the new library to what was in the library, and it'll tell me, you're now missing these 150 songs. And then I can go back and ideally reconstruct it.
You'd think that would not be that difficult to build either.
But in an access model, other than my preferences, I'm never really losing my library, whether I've subscribed to Rhapsody or Spotify when they finally get here, any of these services, I'm not worried that my hard drive crashed. I can access Rhapsody from my laptop, from my iPhone, from Sonos in my living room. I have access to my music wherever I go. It's great. And so I learned the power of the internet a hard way. I was giving a speech, talking at yet another event. Nokia flew me to Hong Kong for the launch of the N-Series phones in April of 2006. And I, in my presentation for the first time, said, we're entering the end of the CD, we're entering the beginning of access dominating as the way people will experience music. I come off stage, 10 minutes later the phone rings, and it's the head of corporate communications from EMI in London, who says, you said what?
Well,
and I'm like, what do you mean? Somebody from the Hong Kong newspaper posted online, Ted Cohen from EMI just said, the CD is dead. And I went, yeah, it is eventually, maybe not now, maybe, it could be 5 years, could be 10 years, but access will trump ownership.
Well, and vinyl still exists. It's not something to build a business model off of, but it exists. And CDs, I think, will still exist, but they're not going to be the future.
But the CDs that I keep are things like the Rhino box sets that have great liner notes and great photos and really interesting packaging. But just to have a jewel case with 12 songs on it, I don't need that anymore.
It's wasteful. It's not environmentally friendly. It's, but then, to take something from the cloud, you still have to have a tangible experience. You still, it just can't.
Well, you need curation. Just having access to 10 million songs isn't the answer. It's having good editorial, good curation, recommended playlists, good tools that basically look at what I've listened to and make some recommendations. And we have to find a balance between giving me what I like, which is fairly simple. If I like, and I'll date myself, if I like Steely Dan or I like the Rolling Stones, I really don't want you to give me more Steely Dan or more Rolling Stones. Give me something new that, for whatever reasons, musicologically, I don't know if that's a word, but from the structure of Steely Dan's music, who's the next Steely Dan?
Do you think that's what the social layer adds on?
Well, the social layer. I mean, Echo Nest does a great job using social recommendation, saying, well, you like the Rolling Stones, and a friend of yours likes the Rolling Stones, but he also likes this new band, and that's that. But then there's also services. There's a company that, to be transparent, we work with called Mood Agents, a company called Syntonetic out of Denmark, that does sort of mood recommendation. I'm going out for a 5K run. give me something up-tempo, a little edgy, you know, sort of on the positive side, or I just really had a crappy day and I just want to revel in feeling, I'm just angry right now. Give me something up-tempo, edgy and angry, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to burn off just listening to whether it's AC/DC or it's the Killers or it's, you know, something really aggro from somebody. That's another way to do it. You have, you know, Pandora, which does a good job, but Pandora...
When you don't want to think about it,
when you don't want to think about it and you really want what you want. So if you like Steely Dan and you put Steely Dan into Pandora, you get back Steely Dan, you get back the Doobie Brothers, you get back Michael McDonald, you get back Donald Fagen, you maybe get back Chicago. You get pretty safe stuff. Right. As much as I love Pandora, and I'm on their advisory board, and I think they do a great job, and Tim, I love you, I think 80% of the time, give me what I want. 20% of the time, give me stuff I didn't know I wanted.
I think that's a great point. And you know, when you go to Amoeba, or if you go to, you know, that's the great thing about being an Amoeba is you're like, oh my God, I totally forgot about this band, and you would never think to look for them.
Right, and Slacker, who pretty much competes head-on with Pandora, does have a slider that lets me go, give me everything I want, give me less of what I want and give me more of what you think I might want. So take me out of my comfort zone. And I always say there's days when I'm feeling, I just want to hear stuff I know. I really don't want to hear anything new. I'm in a really cocoony kind of a mood. And there's other days when I'm feeling fearless. Give me 90% new stuff and 10% stuff I know, but give me great new stuff.
I like that strategy. I'm told that we kind of need to get you onto your panel here, but I wanted to squeeze in two quick questions if I could. The first is, you know, you've been talking about this for a long time. You do Lunch with Ted as a mainstay at the Bandwidth conference, where you have a reputation for just being a straight talker and just telling people. Do you find that the powers that be, the big four, are listening? Are they changing? Is this...
They are. And it's, you know, everyone, again, I'm glad you brought that up. It's really simplistic to say, well, just throw out the old model and do the new model. There's legacy contracts with artists. You know, you've got, when I was at EMI, you've got Lenny Kravitz, who delivers an album, gets a check for $3 million. And if you turn to Lenny Kravitz and say, hi, listen, going on this next record, we're not going to give you $3 million. You're going to record the record for free. You're going to use Pro Tools at your house, and you're going to deliver it. And we're going to do a revenue split with you. We're going to give the music away for free on MySpace, and we're going to put a PayPal window up, and we're going to take donations. Now, Lenny wants the check for $3 million. Right. So you've got legacy, you know, legal agreements in place. You've got artists who, as much as they publicly say to their fans, yeah, it's our label, we want to do all the new stuff, we want to do whatever, they're like, I don't want you giving my music away. Or give me a really, really big check and give all my music away for free, but pay me for the equivalent of 5 million units. So it's really hard to just change a company overnight. I don't think, as people say, that the labels had their heads in the sand. I think there were certain constituencies inside of the label who liked the way things had been, who were like reminiscing for the past, but there was just as many forward-thinking people. It's a tough ship to move, and I think they're doing a better job. And I joke, you know, someone says that things like MP3s being available now from all the majors. I joke that, you know, with desperation comes great vision. And there's deals that are being done now because there's less to risk now. All you're doing is risking the future of the business. You're not risking your past anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you had mentioned all the way back from VHS or beta into CDs and all this. And with every new adoption, you know, whether you could tape something, is that copyright infringement? Or, you know, I can put my CD into a computer, is that copyright infringement? Or, you know.
It's just about being, you know, you talk about fair use. I think it's reasonable fair use. I should be able to make a copy of something and put it in my car. I should be able to make a copy and put it on my iPhone.
Or in the cloud?
Or in the cloud. I should be able to do all that. There's a service, last thing I'll leave with, a service that was bought by Google in the last few months called Simplify. Simplify allowed me to access my Mac anywhere in the world. It was basically Slingbox for music. So they created not a cloud environment, but a link to the hard drive. I had a terabyte of music on my Mac at home. I could access it on my iPhone or on my laptop anywhere in the world. I think that's totally fair use. It also said that I could let 30 of my friends log onto my hard drive. I didn't think that was fair use. It's a nice touch, it's really good. So there's a balance between recognizing that technology has changed the game, but making sure that artists and songwriters and the labels that finance the stuff still have some financial incentive to create the music. Because this idea of, let's just give all the music away for free and we'll make it up on touring, that's a soundbite solution. It doesn't work for everybody. It definitely doesn't work for songwriters. They don't tour. Nobody buys a t-shirt from a songwriter.
Right.
No, you know, most songwriters, other than maybe playing at a local club and doing a guitar night, are not out on tour. So when music is acquired and nobody gets paid, look, it's a nice thing. You should be able to expose the music, but at the end of the day, if someone wants to make a career as a songwriter, or someone wants to make a career as a musician and they can't go out on tour, there should be some reasonable compensation there. And that's where I think services like Spotify and Rhapsody and all the other RDO, all the services that are, and there's some new ones that I saw upstairs here earlier today, is if, as long as there's revenue models there, that even if it's fractions of pennies, it still makes something. It still makes something. It gives the artist exposure. People enjoy the music, but there's a payment mechanism there, and I think that's the win.
All right. Well, Ted, I'm really looking forward to your panel on mobile.
Thanks.
Which is going to feature M-Spot, Thumbplay comes with music, and one more.
There's one more that was added on. I can't remember who it is, but they're upstairs waiting for me to tell them what we're going to talk about.
Well, thank you so much, Ted.
Thanks. Appreciate it.